Aaron, how you doing, man?
Good. How you doing?
Volume back up. What's going on?
Just chilling, man.
Good. Hey, man, sorry for being a little bit late. You know how it is. Day jobs getting in the way of having some fun.
Yeah,
Um, what you been up to?
just hanging out. Couple gigs this weekend.
Okay,
Spending as much time as I can with the family in between all that.
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Look, number one, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I think that your story and the other people that are able to do these interviews, their stories being shared with the group are going to be really valuable to kind of show people the different outlets that are out there to be able to express themselves musically as well as monetize it, as well as be able to spend time with the kids. And it's just an all around kind of great thing to get to know, some of the rock dads in the group. So again, thank you so much for doing it. I really appreciate it.
Hey, man. Thank you.
So what I'm gonna do is I've got some questions here. Music, business, family related, all together. Obviously this is a forum for you. Tell us what you want us to know, nothing that you don't, and we'll kind of go from there, right? So kind of kick it off, like what what set you on the path? So let's go back. You have your own business. What is it? What is it you do, and why do you do it?
I have an online coaching business called Drum Coordination Bootcamp. It's in the early stages, started a couple months ago. I just started posting, well, the YouTube attempts go back at least a decade plus.
Okay.
And actually, as I started to get into this, I just randomly decided to Google myself because I knew I'd put a bunch of stuff up on Google back in the day. And God, what was that website? It was like eZine articles. And
Okay.
something came up that linked me to my old YouTube page. And I was like, it's got 350 subscribers. What the? How did that
That's
happen?
awesome.
Right? And like I hadn't touched it in probably a decade plus. So, I've been teaching for like 20 years and just various attempts over the years to get something going on YouTube and then falling off and doing whatever and getting pulled into like now I play in cover bands. In my 20s I was only playing in original bands, but basically it brought me to the point where I got some coaches, I got some help getting the online business going because doing it on my own just never worked. I felt like I had to like have the whole thing,
Right.
right? Like create a whole course from start to finish. And I never knew what that really looked like. Where they got me, just focused on finding out who my ideal customer is and then creating an ad and kind of focusing my content a little more towards those people and then just building an offer and creating a program to run people through, which is my drum coordination boot camp. It's like an 8-week thing. I've had a few people go through it so far. Everybody is loving it. Most of them have signed on to continue with me past that. And it's just all the things that I've been teaching everybody in person for the last 20 years, but it's more systematized and all that.
Well, and it's one of those things that can just sort of live out there. Again, and I haven't seen the course. I don't know how the course operates, and if it's like you on video and then like walking people through it, or if it's some combination of, hey, go through the course and then on this particular day, we'll have a live chat or something like that. But in most scenarios with online courses, it's you build it out, you have it out there, and then people just say, yeah, I want to opt into that, and you just follow the course videos.
Yep.
And like it's the thing I love about digital businesses is that once you've kind of got it honed in, and you made a great point about just kind of wanting to do everything. Like I got to have all of this to be able to do this. And it's like, no, 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 no. Just focus here and then start branching out. And a lot of people start out with that mentality. I did the exact same thing where it's like, well, if I don't have these 15 items squared away and perfect, I can't hit go on anything. It's like, well, no, that's not how it is. It's actually the exact opposite of that. Um, but it's just something that can live out there and people can come to it, based on your ads or based on your organic growth. And, you build from that, and you can do that while you're having dinner with your family, or that's all happening kind of in the background. And the amount of management that you have to do it typically is kind of minimal, unless of course you're trying to grow very quickly. And then yes, it is a lot of work because you are working on these other things at the same time. But you know transitioning from being, in in your 20s and just being in all, new bands and all originals, and then transitioning to covers and transitioning to a certain degree getting into, your online coaching business. What was that journey like? How did you get from point A to point B?
There was a point where I was just like, I'm sick of spending money playing music. I'm really trying to make money, you know?
Right.
I'd lived with a friend for a super long time, and just the whole roommate lifestyle was getting old. Wanted to get a house, didn't really decide on starting a family at that point. That was something that my now wife and we kind of came together at a certain point. We were just like both decided at the same time we wanted kids after not wanting kids for forever. So that was really kind of a magical Christmas moment, which was cool. But it was just like, I don't think I'm gonna be the rock star that I thought I was gonna be, and I don't even know if I wanted to anymore.
Right.
So it was like, I don't know. I never made it out on tour. Didn't get to that point. Kind of don't care. Now it's funny how different my life is now from when it was, like from what it was in my 20s. I've thought about this a lot. Like right now, I don't want to be where I was, and back then, I never would have wanted to be where I am now. But I'm like more than happy with where my life is at the moment.
What do you think,
So,
what do you think was that changed that for you?
I have no idea, honestly.
Okay.
Just
No,
time,
no problem.
probably.
Okay.
Yeah, it just I couldn't
Look,
even
I
say.
I don't know how old you are. I'm 45. Like, I've just been a lover of music my entire life. Like, I am not proficient in any instrument at all. And I always I always had a passion for music. I mean, I went to SAE Institute in Nashville, and, worked in studios and did my internship time and everything, but never really could get to the point where I was actually in the business, and gave it up and was working retail for another, 15 years. So, like, I a lot of times when you have that music dream and it just doesn't pan out the way that you thought you wanted it to go, it's very easy to kind of just say, well, I guess it's just not for me. And there's nothing that I can really do about it. And then you find a way to kind of come back to it, or twist it, or find a different outlet for it to still be able to have a music career, but maybe not like a touring band or a solo artist. I mean, there's so many different avenues to go after. And one of the I'll be honest with you, I love the idea of online courses and online teaching, because you're getting to, for lack of better terminology, create musicians. And the more musicians that are created, the more potential for music that gets out there. So I'm all for this kind of model,
Yeah.
and the more of it that we can get, because your style resonates with a certain type of customer. Somebody else's style resonates with a different kind of customer that might not be for yours. So there's a limitless pool out there. It's just a matter of finding your own unique voice and finding your new, unique way of going about doing it that resonates with a lot of people. What have you found has been your unique way about finding, your ideal customer?
I mean, my ideal people are really like into rock or metal,
Okay.
and I prefer to work with self-taught people. I feel like working with beginners is getting a little old for me because I've been teaching for 20 years. And I really, on the note that you just mentioned, like there's so much you can do with music. Teaching has been a great thing for me. I like kind of pursued setting up a recording studio at a certain point, but that's not, I'm glad that I did it, and I'm glad that I learned the things that I took from that, because now I can, I at least have the ability to give feedback on any recordings that I do.
Right.
But mixing is it's so tedious. It's not my thing. But I like teaching, and I really like working with self-taught people because I feel like they have a more adventurous, kind of explorative attitude towards everything. And like, I love when people go home and come back and they're like, "Hey, I learned this song this week." I'm like, yes, that's what it's supposed to be, right? Like the goal is to get people to be self-sufficient musicians. And when they're going for it and they're trying things on their own, like, what more can I ask for?
Right.
Rather than having to be like, hold your hand every single step of the way, like, oh, I'm uncertain about this. I don't want to try things. But I love people who go for it, because then it's just like little corrective measures along the way and they make more progress. And then like the sessions are a lot more fun because they'll come in with questions. And I would rather answer your questions and be able to guide you specifically where you want to be, rather than just say, okay, this is what you need to learn next. So
There's,
like I studied guitar and drums both. Like I started both around 10 years old. And when I was taking guitar lessons with my first dude, he's like this balding dude, and he has the long fingernails on the right hand because he plays classical, and short on the left hand. Got this mug that says "Tune It or Die" with a skull and crossbones on it. And I wanted to play Metallica, and he's like got this book just trying to teach me how to read everything out of the book and do like London Bridge is falling down. I'm like, bro, I want to play Seek and Destroy.
Right.
Right. So that's kind of where I've been the whole time I've been teaching, is I experienced what it's like to take lessons and not get what you want out of it. So I've always been more focused. Like if somebody wants to learn Taylor Swift, we do Taylor Swift. I don't care how I feel about it. If you want to do Metallica, I'll be stoked, but it's just whatever gets you excited about music, because that's what makes people practice.
100%.
Doing something that's fun and interesting to them. And if it's just like, okay, let's learn the rudiments because you should learn the rudiments,
Right.
that's not as fun. But if you want to learn the rudiments, if that's something you get excited about, that's what I like to do with people. So I do have like, my program it's an 8-week thing, and it's like, I mean, it's what we're doing right now. I'm on Zoom calls with people all the time now, and it's just a lot of one-on-one work. There are videos and all kinds of stuff in the member area for specific issues that people have problems with, but there's like some jazz and Latin stuff in there. If that's not your thing, that's not your thing. But if that's something you're interested in, I have kind of different pathways that I can take with each person. And, we'll work on a little bit of music too, but with this, I'm taking maybe a little bit more of a kind of a pivot from what I do when I'm like one-on-one in person with people. That's like almost always, once we get through some basics, that's almost always focused on music, because then I can get kids into bands. And I've taught a lot of student bands, and I like doing that a lot as well. But with the drum coordination boot camp, that's like getting you foundations and making sure that any hole that you missed picking up stuff by yourself on YouTube, that we're filling those holes, that we're making sure that you know how to work on things and practice well and be able to make progress on your own. Because I can show you things and you can rely on me forever, or I can just teach you how to fish.
Right.
And when you can do that, you can be like, okay, today's Tuesday. What song do I feel like learning today?
You just said something that kind of resonated with me because of the correlation between learning an instrument and learning to put your business together. Like you mentioned earlier on about getting coaches to figure out how to kind of hone in on the things that you needed to do with the business. And having that mentor, having that guidance has, obviously made improvements to what your business is. It's the exact same thing with learning an instrument. There are 1,000, 100,000, 100 million, YouTube videos out there on how to learn something. And yeah,
Yeah.
you're going to be able to kind of follow along, but you don't have that little extra touch of somebody on the other end of a Zoom call or right there standing beside you in the moment going, okay, you're doing it right, but I see where you're frustrated. And here's why it's this right here. If you just tweak that, you don't get that out of those videos. Like
Yeah.
not having somebody that can work with you specifically on what your specific need is, that is what catapults you, you know, exponentially towards where you're really trying to go.
Yeah, absolutely. The feedback is number one, like the best piece of working with someone. And on YouTube, like, or any social media platform. Like I'm on Instagram a lot more than everything else these days, but I post everything on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. But it's like I can make a video that tells you what the most common pitfalls are, but unless you're like seeing yourself from the outside or taking video or using a mirror or something, you're not always going to catch this stuff. And you like most people don't know what they don't know. And you can kind of get that out of a video, but having somebody watch you do it and say, okay, I've seen hundreds of people make this same mistake. This is how you fix it. That's what most people really need. But you don't get that out of the
Right.
social media stuff.
And some of it, I understand that some of it is, kind of a barrier to entry. Like, I've got all this free stuff on YouTube that I could get, and I don't want to invest in getting private coaching or going to that next level of getting that one-on-one experience so that you can progress. But you may have found this. I know I have in almost every area of life where I have tried to teach myself. I've gotten fairly far into it, but I always hit an obstacle or roadblock. And as soon as I found somebody to bounce ideas off of, to take a different perspective or a different look at what it was that I was doing, like it's like, why did I waste so much time? Why did I not ask? Why did I not put, just a little bit of time, money, and energy into an investment to get me to where I want to go that much faster? Because if you're wanting to be in a band, like your practice time is the most important thing. Time under the instrument is the most important thing. And if you're constantly beating your head up against the wall because you're can't figure out the time signature of a song, then you've wasted all that time when you could have just gone to a teacher and said, hey, look, what am I doing wrong? You're doing this wrong, fix that. And then boom, you're off to the races. One less thing you have to worry about because you've overcome it. And I may be harping on this a little too much, but it's the whole idea that we get in our own way for the most
Oh, yeah.
ridiculous reasons. Like that is what prevents, in my opinion, a lot of musicians from becoming the musicians that they could be. It's because they get in their way too much and don't make real investments in what it is that they're trying to do. But I digress. We're
Oh
here to
man,
talk.
I feel you on that. I'm going back. I guess I can't remember if I read it for real or not, but I do audiobooks now because I'm so busy at home
Oh yeah.
and I'm in the car at least 6 hours, if not 8 to 10 a week. So I can knock out an audiobook a week. You know what I'm saying?
Easily.
If I stay focused. So I'm back on the inner game of music. And that's a huge thing that they're talking about, like mind, like I don't know if they called it self one and self two or mind one and mind two, but same idea. Like the first one is the one that's all the chatter, and then the second one is just being aware. And if you're aware of what's going on in your mind and aware of what's going on in your body and you're playing, that's where you really fix things. It's awareness is the cure. And if you get bogged down in the mind or thinking about the last time you screwed this up, or here comes the hard part and all that stuff, or just get distracted about thinking about like, what am I going to eat for dinner after this set, or even after the practice session,
Right.
you're not in the moment and you're not putting yourself into the music as much as possible. So I'm like kind of in that again for myself, but also to like revisit it again. I guess I don't know if I'm revisiting or not. I think I read it, but man, it was a long time ago if I read it. So I'm I'm in it at least. I think to help myself have a few more things to give people because I'm always trying to dig deeper, not just for myself, but so that I can help people learn things quicker.
When again, in my opinion, it's such a sort of dual path that you have to walk. The there's the physical skill sets that you have to learn to be able to play what it is that you're wanting to play. So, there's that mind muscle connection that really just comes from practice, but there's the mental game. There's that whole mental game of, are you willing to put in the time and energy and work to do it when you're in there? To your point, are you in the moment? Where's your head out throughout all of this? Because it's when, at least again, in my opinion, when you put those two things together, that's when the real progress is made. And you can't overstate the importance of what's going on up here to the application of music and to the quality and the success that you have with the music that you're trying to create, because that is the thing that'll get in your way more than anything else.
Oh yeah. In music and in life, you get your brain out of the
100%.
way, stop holding yourself back. It's amazing what you can do.
It's so weird that it's like that too in so many different areas. It's like you have this death grip on the idea of what you want to have happen, but you don't really see it come to fruition until you kind of let go a little bit and just sort of like work a process and just have faith that it's going to happen as long as you're consistent. But some people, we live in an age where everything's more immediate. Like if I don't get it right now, then
Yeah.
screw it. I'll move on to something else. But
Yeah. We
that's a
act like Rome
completely different
was built in
conversation.
a day.
Right. Exactly. So let me ask you this. So you realize, at some point early on that you're going after too many things, but what were some of the actual obstacles that you were running into when trying to create this online drum business that you've got?
I was trying to write an ebook, and I feel like ebooks are probably a little 15 years ago.
Okay.
But I had a bunch, and I may do something with that still. I may include it as a bonus or
Yeah.
something. I don't know. I
Make it a
was
lead
just
magnet.
yeah, yeah, potentially. I was just really like writing out every possible practice method I could come up with
Okay.
because I feel like that's the biggest thing that I've taught people over the years is how to learn.
Okay.
And sometimes it comes down to just me being no. Like they'll play three notes, no. Stop. Don't do it wrong at all. Or that's there's a fine line. You gotta dance between learning to make mistakes and recover and being super strict on yourself and making sure that you don't do it wrong because practice doesn't make perfect. Practice creates habits. Perfect practice makes perfect. So you got to either slow it down or do a small enough chunk where you're nailing stuff over and over, like 20 or 40 or 100 or 3,000 times. It really, the specific number doesn't matter. It's just about doing it until you know that you have it. And then we can either add the next note or speed it up or take whatever direction needs to happen from there.
Right.
So I don't remember your question anymore,
No, it's
but
quite all right.
perfect
The
practice makes perfect.
Absolutely. The question is, outside of going after like a bunch of different things at the outset of trying to build this thing out, what were some of the other specifics? What were the things that you were trying to do that were getting in the way? People were telling you, look, you need to just cut that out and focus on this. Like, what were those specific things, if you can remember or want to
Yeah,
share
I
with
mean,
us?
Honestly, I feel like I felt so overwhelmed that it kept me from really taking any action
Okay.
for the most part. I was getting into starting to post just like cover videos, and then the guy I had who was going to edit the videos, he's my bandmate, but it was he's like went through a studio situation where we had to find a new place and he needs a new computer. So I shifted gears. I was like, all right, I'm just going to do all these drum intros. But ultimately, I knew I wanted to be teaching and not just doing covers. And I feel like I was maybe afraid to jump into the teaching side of things. And, it was just like, I kept it was what you were talking about. I kept myself from making progress in every way. So I got some help, and now the train is moving.
Well, that's great. So let's do this. Let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about music specifically. Um, you know, you're into rock and metal, right?
Yeah.
So who are you into? Who are your influences?
Oh man, the first band that I really fell in love with, I would probably say, is Metallica.
Okay.
But I was always more of a guitarist when I was going for the Metallica stuff.
Okay.
Zeppelin was my second love, and then it was like getting into Dream Theater from there, and got like the Mars Volta, and we were in that kind of scene, like it was kind of like the hardcore scene in the early 2000s, but we were the band I was in then, man, we would blend. Like the one song had 20 to 25 different sections in it. Like there was kind of a thread tying it all together, but it was like, through composed is what they call it, in classical music, when there's not really a chorus.
Right.
Stuff just repeat, but like, there's catchy parts. So it wasn't entirely off-putting, but it was, we're experimental, trying to do something new. And it was fun. There was lots of cool stuff, but
Well, if you're
yeah,
talking about the early 2000s, I mean, the late 90s, early 2000s, and a lot of what we're seeing probably in the last, I mean, in my opinion, probably the last 3 or 4 years, like it's all about mixing genres into either a single song or into a single album or into a single concept. So, like, we started to see that with like new metal coming out of the late 90s into the early aughts. And then it just sort of morphed into different other, like, I have never heard as much like country rap in my life as I have in the last like 10 years.
I
And
think they
it's
call
not
it
going
hick hop.
away. What's that?
I think they call it hick hop.
I, you know what? I don't know what they call it, but I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of it because I grew up, you know, my country listening was old school, like Hank Williams three, or excuse me, Hank Williams senior, Hank Williams junior, and the older stuff, the stuff that when I was a kid was like that's crap.
Yeah.
Now at 45, I'm like, dude, that's what real country was. Like Waylon Jennings and all that kind of stuff. That's what real. I don't know what this is, but what I find very interesting, and I mean, this may be a little controversial, but find it interesting that country artists are incorporating hip hop and call it R&B and rap into their songs, but you don't see it on the other side. Like you don't see
Well,
country music you don't see country music infiltrating any other genre.
isn't that
It's
kind
like
of what
they're just
Old Town
assimilating.
Road is, though?
Well, Old Town Road, I mean, I would say that because the originating artist, or at least not the originating artist, the the artist that put it out,
Yeah.
was Lil Nas or whatever his name is. He is the like if I wanted to go out and buy that record, I'd have to buy his record on
Right.
his label on the label that he is on. So it's not, it's not Atlantic, country or something out of Nashville. It's on his label. So to me, that's there is an element of him doing that, but I feel like that's a one-off. Like you don't see it anywhere else.
I can
And
dig
that
that.
song is what, 8 years old?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Like it didn't end up being a trend, but the reverse can be said.
I can dig it.
And you see a lot. I mean, but the crux of what I'm trying to say is that we're in an age where this mixing of different genres is much more prevalent than it probably ever has been. And there may be some artists out there that are doing it well, but there's a ton that are not. So it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And I think that we have an opportunity right now with more people doing more experimentations to get it right and to take the lead to start following in some degree those that are doing it well and playing off of that. We're in a time in music that reminds me a lot of the potential, or at least has the potential of what we saw in the late 90s and early 2000s. And it's been, especially in rock, like it's been stagnant in my opinion for the last probably 8 to 10 years. You haven't seen a whole lot of stuff that just blows the doors off people. You know, every once in a while you'll have like a Metallica album come out that's great, and then Foo Fighters, or you know, but you don't have anything that just
Yeah.
resonates across generations.
There's
You
like
know,
no one new to carry the torch either.
not really. But just because there's not doesn't mean that there's not. And what I mean by that is it could be that the artist that does that hasn't fully developed yet. They haven't figured out how to get their sound out yet, at least to the extent that they could, because they're not using all of the avenues available to them to do it. And I think it's really incumbent upon those of us that just love music and want to see it flourish and you know, want to see the next musical revolution, to be pushing people as hard as we can to get into music and to be proficient in the music that they're trying to create, and then get that music out to as many people as they can, which is again why I applaud what you're doing as much as I am. I just that is one of those ways to help create the next generation of musicians, and I feel like we're in a time where we need them more than ever. That's my soapbox and I'm staying on it.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you.
So talk to me about what you've been doing with music in terms of, like, we know kind of the genres that you like. What was the best, concert that you've seen, this year, if you've been to it?
uh, we haven't really been going to concerts since our daughter was born. It's like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
But
I know
we
how that
did
is.
we did see a Steely Dan tribute band pretty close to town that was really, really impressive because they got some good musicians in that band. The guitarist in that band, they blew my mind. They were called Major Dudes too, so I love their name because it's coming straight out of a Steely Dan tune. But
That's fantastic.
I know the best concert I'm going to see this year is going to be in November. I'm finally going to see Metallica.
Nice. Where you seen them at?
So, Ford Field.
Ford Field. Okay. Where's
Yep.
that? I don't know anything
That's
about
in
Ford Field.
Detroit. I'm I'm
Okay.
I'm like an hour north of there, kind of near Flint.
Got it.
Um, so we're seeing them with Pantera, and which it's only half of Pantera, so I
This,
can't
all right.
be
We're
as
gonna get in
excited.
trouble if we go down this road.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people that, I was actually just talking to another rock dad the other day in one of these conversations, and we kind of touched on that because he's a huge Pantera fan, and I asked the question, is this iteration, you call it Pantera?
yeah.
And he's got a very interesting viewpoint on it. What about you? So you're saying it's half the band, so can you
Who's
call it Pantera or not?
who's Pantera without the Abbott brothers? Come on. Come on. I mean, I'm excited to see it. It's going to be
Right.
cool. I'm sure the dudes that I think it's Charlie Benante
Yep,
on
I believe
drums
so.
and Zach Wild on guitar. Like,
Correct.
who else would you put on guitar besides Dime?
I,
Since he's probably squealing more than Dime ever did, even.
I would also make the argument though that the if you were ever going to do this, like where you bring somebody else in,
Yeah.
Zach would have been the only one. Like if
That,
Zach had said no, that I'm not doing this for respect for Dime or whatever. Like
Yeah,
I hope that they wouldn't have gone forward with it, but
right.
you know,
Like who do you call from here?
there's I mean I don't think that there's anybody, and I'm really happy to hear, you know, that what is it, Dime's girlfriend and the Abbott family kind of signed off on everything to let it
Oh,
happen, because it was, I mean, if you know anything about that story from back when they all broke up and Phil went to Super Joint Ritual and basically said that that was his new band and that's it. And I mean, they haven't put out an album in I don't know how long. Um, you know, and the other guys went and did Damage Plan. Like that was, there was a lot of uh, negative back and forth, we'll say. But I digress. Um, so we got Metallica coming up. Have you seen any of the videos from the shows that they've been doing, like on YouTube?
no.
It's as you would expect from Metallica. It's a big production. I think you're gonna have a great time. Um,
I, even if it's half as good as I expected it to be, I think I'll have a great time because, like I said, I haven't really been to a concert in probably 2+ years. I don't even know. We're going to like
we,
comedy shows and lectures rather than concerts now, like to our age.
you know, I'm kind of in the same boat. It's been a minute since I've been to, you know, a show. I'll just say this, a show that like I want to go see. Like I've been to some shows that I was kind of dragged to, and it's like, all right, you know, get out of the house. But one that, you know, it's really just for me. It's been a hot minute. But I've got a 10-year-old and a 9-year-old, so it's balancing act between all those things, and finding time to go out and see shows is, it can be difficult unless, of course, you have the time to do it. But when it comes to like and we'll switch it back a little bit to the business, what do you see as the next steps for you and your online business? Where do you want it to go?
Well, the next thing that I really need to accomplish on my to-do list is I'm going to do some kind of free training.
Okay.
I think it's going to be on using a metronome
Okay.
because, it's like the most important tool as a drummer. Not only just to develop your sense of time, but also to track progress. And I think that's the one that people overlook a lot. They're like, I want to get faster. And it's like, okay, do you use a metronome? Well, no. So how are you going to know if you're faster from day to day unless you're like making a bunch of recordings and playing them next to each other, right? Because you might feel like you're faster today than you were yesterday,
Right.
but there's all kinds of different factors in how you actually feel. You may end up be playing slower than you were yesterday and think you're making progress. But unless you actually track it, have a tool that says this is 100 beats a minute, it's the same today as it was yesterday, and probably not the old ones that tick, because those can really, I don't
Right.
there's definite
Be able to hear it.
consistency problems with those sometimes. But like the big thing is starting to remove notes out of the click too. And I got this from the Victor Wooten book. Benny Greb talks about it a lot too. But Victor Wooten has this awesome book that every musician should read. It's called The Music Lesson. Are
Okay.
you familiar with Victor Wooten?
I am familiar with Victor Wooten, but I did not know that he had a book out. So
Yeah, and it's an audio book. He actually has two. There's a sequel to it now.
okay.
Um, but I really like the first one the best. And I've read it multiple times. I have multiple copies that I've passed around to students. Like I had the one student band, I bought 4 copies so they could all read it, and we did like a book club with it because it's like, okay, you guys are learning every song like this. We need something to make this a little bit more interesting and make you guys more musical. But like it's the story of him learning music from his teacher, and it's just like every chapter goes over a different element of music, and it's super fantastic. And the audiobook has like musical examples of everything going on in the background, and he narrates it. And man, that thing is just like a primer on understanding what music really is.
We'll have to find a link or something and put it in the description for this interview, and make it available to everybody. See if it might be something that resonates with them. With the free training, what's, obviously the training itself is around the metronome, but what's the goal of creating that training in terms of the business? Is it you putting it out there to, as again, a lead magnet of some description to get more people in and
Yeah,
ultimately to
just
increase the number of
yep.
subscribers or people that take the, okay.
Yeah, just to try to get people more familiar with me, do something a little bit more extensive than a reel or a YouTube short. Most of the
Right.
videos I put out are under a minute. So
Right.
do something with a little more depth to it. And,
Okay.
where I was going with this, because I was like, now I'm talking about Victor Boot and what I was talking about the metronome, right?
Right.
So if you start to remove notes or like clicks from the metronome, like you could have a 16 beat pattern, you remove one click at the end or two or three or four, or by the end of it, he's got it only one click for every four measures, right? That's where it really gets useful to use a metronome. Not that it's not useful otherwise, but
Right.
if it's always clicking, it can become a crutch.
Yeah.
So that when you remove it, you're going to tend to rush or drag or whatever push or pull you do with the tempo. So if you, or you even do it with 8 beats, 4 beats on, 4 beats off, and then you play a fill in the second measure and test yourself when it comes back in. Were you
Right.
right with it, or were you ahead? Were you a little behind? And you start to analyze it and really understand what your tendencies are, and then you can watch for them. And then you have really the ultimate goal of using a metronome. You've developed an inner clock within yourself rather than relying on the thing. And a lot of times you end up playing to a click. You got in-ear monitors, and you can do it, and that's fine in a lot of performance scenarios. But if you're in a performance scenario where that's not the case, which is what I prefer, like I like when a song pushes or pulls a little bit. Not a ton, but if it's like if you do like you tap tempo along to some songs, they're faster in the chorus than they are in the verse. And it's just a BPM or two, but to maintain some kind of fluidity and some breath and some life to the music, to me is way better than just tick tick tick
Oh
tick
yeah.
tick tick. Like just, I mean, we got drum machines, right? I don't like drum machines. I used to have a bumper sticker that said drum machines have no soul. And I still believe that.
Well, I still would make an argument that Thomas Hawk might be a machine of some description with what that
Yeah,
guy is able to put out. Like,
yeah,
I
he's out of
think
this
he's a
world.
cyborg. He's
He's out
he's
of this
he's
world.
nuts. And we could do an entire conversation just around him and stuff that Meshuggah does. But cool. Aaron, tell us where we can get a hold of. What are your socials? How do we get a hold of your online drumming, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, same at for all my socials. It's at Aaron Reinhard Drums, no spaces, nothing like that. Just one word. And then that's Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. My website is Drum Coordination Bootcamp, but the homepage doesn't really have much there. It's going to have the training there real soon. I was hoping to get it done by the time we met, so I could be like, "Yeah, go straight there and you'll find it." But it's not done yet. Within a week or two, it should be. I don't know when you're posting this.
Well, look, I can coordinate it around when
Okay.
when you've got it up live. We don't have to. I don't have to hit go on this until you're ready. So you just let me
Okay.
know, and I'll have it set up.
Okay. I like that. I was like, I don't even know if we're streaming live. Is this?
No, no. Look, I wouldn't be able to do it live, at least not at this point,
Yeah.
just for my own sanity, because I like to be able to. Okay, I need to go back and I want to like look at a couple of things and pull some pieces out for the description, but definitely want to coordinate it at a time that's best for you, so that your potential customer can, whoever might be watching this, gets the best experience once it's ready to go. So
Well,
that's not a
sick. Then
problem.
it'll be live when you see this.
Excellent. So go there now.
Yeah.
Um, Aaron, man, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I know that you're
Thank
going to
you.
be able to help a bunch of people that are going to be able to go to the website and see your socials and see what it is you do and how you do it, and want to be a part of it. So thank you for that. everybody, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. Go check out Aaron's website, start getting those drum lessons down, and we will see you on the next one.
Peace out, y'all.
Thanks, Aaron.